So now what I want to focus on in this video is helping you guys with when it comes to making that commitment and knowing that what you're making a commitment towards is not only something that you can trust, but also someone that you can trust. And so whenever you're making this commitment, like sometimes it might be that you're just committing towards becoming self-employed. So what that would require is that not only do you trust the something, which is the vehicle that you're going into, but also you trust the someone, which is you in that situation. But if you're going into a business and there's other people in that business, there's someone who you've got to follow, someone who is going to be training you or coaching you or giving you that little bit of guidance, then you need to have the level of trust for that person as well as yourself in the situation and the vehicle that they're in and the vehicle that you're going to be in. So you have to, first of all, when applying this mathematical formula that I'm going to be giving you right here, when it comes to being able to become very certain about who you're going to trust and how you can trust them, then you need to first understand, where to apply the formula, with which entities and with which people. Then once you've kind of covered who are the right people to be applying it with and which entities, then you can start to apply the formula and work it to your advantage so that you can have that certainty that what you're doing is the right decision. So, the first thing about the trust formula is we're going to look at what actually is this mathematical formula and how does it work. And the beautiful thing about it is because we are using a formula, then it works every single time, no matter what situation, which person. You can have this bit of a checklist where you calculate the entire thing, it gives you a number, and if you're not happy or satisfied with that number, then you just don't go ahead. So that's the way that it works. The way that the trust formula looks like is that you have trust on one side of the equation, and that is t. So t equals, and then it's another fraction, kind of like we had with the value equation. So the fraction goes that you have on the top of the fraction. The numerator is the credibility as one thing, so it's C plus R plus I over S, which stands for credibility plus reliability plus intimacy over self-orientation equals trust. And the thing about the self-orientation is that the self-orientation at the bottom of the equation, the bottom of the fraction, is when you have trust for another person. But when it's looking to trust yourself, then that self-orientation wants to be at the top of the equation, the top of the formula. But when we're looking at this, there's obviously the components of that, which are credibility, reliability, intimacy, and self-orientation. But now it's about really understanding what do these things mean. So I'm going to break that down for you real quick. What credibility means in this instance is credibility relates to the words, right? Credibility is the words and is revealed in your credentials and also in your honesty, character. So that's pretty much where that credibility comes in. It's kind of like looking at the track record that a person has in results that they've got or the results that you've got yourself. So that's the credibility piece, and it's really important for people to understand that as much as you get to make a decision with other people as to whether you want to work with them based on their level of trust that they're extending to you, self-trust is just as important. Self-trust is just as important. It's going to be really difficult for you to make any decision if you haven't built up a positive amount and an influx and abundance of self-trust. So if you're the type of person who isn't developing a track record by doing little things every single day over a period of time, or by showing yourself you can get results from taking action, then you're going to lose your own self-trust and you're not going to want to make any commitments. I remember the reason as to why I was so keen and excited and never really had one doubt in my mind that I wouldn't eventually get the results that I was going to in my business was because I had a track record previously within sports where I was like a national level athlete in 3 different sports. So I knew that as long as I was going to commit a certain period of time, I was never going to quit and I was always going to get the results eventually, 100% guaranteed. It was just a matter of when, not if. And the reason for why I had that level of belief and certainty in me is because of my track record previously. That's why I had such a high level of self-trust. So that's the credibility piece, and you want to work on this. You want to ask yourself the question, number one, do you already have a track record? And it doesn't necessarily have to be within the field that you're going into, but do you have a track record in something else? Does the person who you're going into business with, do they have a track record? Are they connected with somebody who does have a track record? And if they do, then you got to be able to leverage that as much as possible within that working relationship. So that's credibility. Then the next piece is reliability. So reliability relates to our actions and is revealed by keeping our promises. That's pretty much it. It's if you're the type of person who says you're going to do something and then you don't do it, you are immediately messing up with your own self-trust. You're messing up with your own self-trust. So it's one of the worst things that you can possibly do in telling somebody you're going to do something, or even telling yourself you're going to do something, saying that I'm going to go to the gym on Monday, and then you don't go. That is just like completely shattering away your own self-confidence, your own self-trust. Because confidence, when you look at the root word of confidence, it actually means with trust. So the key is this formula. If you want to become confident, just stick to this formula as much as possibly can and never break the rules, right? Never make a promise knowing that you're not going to be able to keep it. Never make an agreement and a promise knowing that you're never going to be able to keep it. What you want to be doing is making a promise, and then once you've made that promise, never ever go back against your word with that, because it diminishes your own reliability, right? And so when you have another person as well who you're working with and you're seeing that trust with them, one of the ways that you can just, even if you haven't necessarily seen what it's like to work with them years in advance and what the whole, working relationship will be for a lifetime, one of the ways that you can have a prejudgment as to whether it's going to be a good decision to work with them is just to see how reliable that they've been up until this point. So have they kept the promises that they said that they were going to do? When they said that they were going to help you in this particular way, did they actually help you? Did they say that they were going to hop on this call with you when they said they were going to do it? Did they say that, this thing that will give you certain benefit, if you were to try it out, did that actually give you certain benefit? And if you start to, put the dots together and like, 9 times out of 10, this person, when they promised me something, it actually came to fruition. So that's someone who now has a high level of reliability, which increases that number. So now let's say, for example, we've got somebody that's got good credibility and they've got good reliability, then they could be an 8 out of 10 for that and another 8 out of 10 for the reliability. And what you want to be doing whilst you're going through this this mathematical formula when making a decision with where you can place your trust, then you want to be writing out numbers for all of these on a scale of 1 to 10. So you define what 1 is. 1 could be, someone who is never ever keeping their promises. They've broken every single one of them, and they make promises constantly, but it's just complete bullshit every single time. Same thing with credibility. Like, they don't have any track record in any area whatsoever. They've just, not got any results which are substantial, and that's, again, it's another 0 out of 10. Or 1 out of 10. But if it's the opposite, and you've got 8 out of 10s, you want to be writing this down. You want to define what a 10 is, right? A 10 is just the complete opposite, where someone is keeping every single one of their promises. And a 10 is someone who has got a great track record, right? So those are the 2 factors there at the top. And then the next one that we have is what we call intimacy. So intimacy relates to our emotions. So the first one was words, second was actions, now it's emotions. And people, when it comes to their intimacy, it is shown through how safe people feel talking about difficult things in the presence of that person. It's because of how comfortable that they make you feel. It's that intimacy. So when you're someone who is not very emotionally intelligent and you let your emotions take control and you cast judgment, for example, or you end up becoming negative out of nowhere, you become angry and resentful, then your trust levels go down, not only for other people, but also for you, because you don't feel safe in being able to speak about certain things by yourself, with yourself, and even think about certain things, focus on certain things, because you're afraid of what will happen when you go to that darker place. So the intimacy piece is very, very important, and it's one of those ones where it requires that feminine energy to be able to master your emotional intelligence. So yeah, this is like the balance between I'd say the more masculine in terms of credibility and reliability, but then the feminine with the intimacy of being able to actually have that energetic space, which, to be honest, is a huge part of trust, because a lot of the decisions that we end up making become emotional decisions when we start out, and then we reason with logic afterwards. So intimacy is a huge piece, especially if you're the type of person who is wanting to help another person make a commitment as well. If you don't make that person feel safe, and you don't make them feel like you have any control over your emotions, then it's going to be difficult for you to help them make a decision with you. And it's not just about like if somebody was going to make that commitment with you. It could just be that you want somebody to support you in making a decision. And the reason that they don't support you is because you're terrible at creating that environment where they feel safe, and it's an intimate environment. So yeah, this is an absolute game changer. I wish somebody would have given me this information when I was first getting started out. But yeah, this is it's gonna be super helpful for you. And then at the bottom of the fraction, what we have is what we call self-orientation. So the way that self-orientation works is this relates now to our caring, right? It's to how much we care, and it is revealed through where we place that care and the focus. Is that care and is our heart, is that attention focused towards other people, or is it focused towards ourselves? And the reason for why I said that it wants to be at the bottom of the fraction if you are trying to figure out if you should trust another person, is because if they're only considering themselves in the equation when you're having a conversation, then the degree of care that they have for you is very low. So you should not necessarily trust that person, because what they're trying to get is something out for themselves instead of something for you and for them. So you want to see like what is the degree of the self-orientation right there in that particular conversation, in that interaction. But when you are making a decision for yourself and a commitment that's just including you, then that self-orientation wants to be right at the top, because you're making a decision which is going to be now selfish. And if you don't have that level of care for you, then there is no self-trust that you can have. So I would say that now has to go to the top. So for example, let's say that we scored a 10 out of 10 for all three of them at the top. That would be 30. And then at the bottom, it could be that we're going to try and trust somebody else, and they've also scored a 10 out of 10. If they score a 10 out of 10 for self-orientation, then that actually brings them down, because they are too focused onto themselves. So really, you want that number to be lower with self-orientation when you're trusting another person, and you would want that to be a 1. And if it was a 1, then it would be 30. So they score 30 out of 30, pretty much. It's the highest number that they can get. And if you do it for yourself, and it's self-trust now, then the number at the bottom could be 30, which adds up the credibility, reliability, and intimacy, and the number at the top could be a 10. So now you have 10 over 30, like that, and that gives you a number as well. So this is how you want to be working out the formula and figuring out how you can mathematically engineer the trust so that you can fully commit. Because if the maths is showing you that this person is trustworthy, this entity is trustworthy, this vehicle is trustworthy, then there is no logical reason as to why you should not commit. There is no logical reason as to why you should not commit. And if you don't, then you have to appreciate that that is something that is holding you back emotionally, and then you got to go back to like the key of spiritual connection, for example, and go through some of those videos. But this is now where you should have already gone through that. So at this point, it's like, okay, how do we now make the actual decision? What does that process look like? And so that's what I'm going to cover in the next videos. And yeah, we're going to go dive into some detail with the decision-making process, how that should look, and what you want to be doing next. So yeah, I'll see you on that video, and we'll go into more detail with that.